It is 5 o'clock in the morning, sometime around 1905, in the East End of London, and a woman named Mary Smith is standing under a window with a pea shooter loaded with dried peas. She is aiming carefully at a second-floor pane of glass, because the man sleeping behind it has to be at the docks in 40 minutes, or he loses a day's wage he cannot afford to lose. Mary Smith is a knocker-upper. That is her actual job title. For a few pence a week, she and hundreds of others like her across industrial England walk the same streets every single morning, rain or fog or frost, tapping on windows with long poles, rattling shutters, firing dried peas through a hollow tube, so that factory workers wake up on time in a world that does not yet have a reliable machine to do it for them. If she oversleeps, they oversleep. If she is sick, an entire street is late for the whistle. One woman's alarm clock, quite literally, wakes a neighborhood. But the story does not start here. It starts roughly 23 centuries earlier in the lamplit lecture halls of ancient Athens. Because before there were knocker-uppers, before there were bells, before there was any human institution built around the specific problem of how do I make myself get up, there was only the body doing it on its own. Sunlight, cold, hunger, birdsong. For most of human history, waking up was not a technology problem at all. It was biology running on its own ancient clock, tuned by roughly 200,000 years of sleeping in caves, huts, and open air where the sun made the decision for you. The rooster helped. Roosters have been used as informal alarms for something like 8,000 years, ever since domestication first put them within earshot of human dwellings in Southeast Asia. But roosters are unreliable narrators of time. They crow at first light, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, and they have no concept of, I need to be at the temple by dawn for a specific ceremony. Once human society organized itself around schedules, religious, military, agricultural, the rooster's guesswork was no longer good enough. Someone needed to engineer precision into waking up. And the first person history credits with actually doing that deliberately, on purpose, was the philosopher Plato. Sometime in the 4th century BC, running his academy in Athens, Plato is said to have built himself a water-powered alarm, a large vessel that filled slowly overnight, until the rising water forced air through a tube and produced a shrill whistling sound at a set hour, timed to rouse him and his students before sunrise for lecture. Whether Plato built it himself or simply commissioned it is debated by historians, but the underlying device was real, and it belonged to a category of ancient technology called the clepsydra, or water clock, which had already been used in Egypt for over 1,000 years to measure time by the steady, predictable drip of water from one vessel into another. Plato had essentially taken a tool for measuring time and repurposed it into a tool for demanding action at a specific moment. That distinction, measuring time versus enforcing a wake-up, is the entire history of the alarm clock in miniature, and it started in a garden in Athens with a philosopher who apparently hated sleeping in. The idea did not stay in Athens. Around 250 BC in Alexandria, an engineer named Ctesibius, working in the great library and workshop culture of Ptolemaic Egypt, refined the water clock dramatically, adding gears, floats, and pebbles that would drop at intervals onto a gong, creating one of the first documented mechanical alarm systems in history. Ctesibius is sometimes called the father of pneumatics, and his water-driven alarm devices influenced clock design for the next 1,500 years. 3 centuries later, the Romans adapted similar water clock technology into public timekeeping, most famously in the Tower of the Winds, built in Athens around 50 BC, an octagonal structure that used both sundials and an internal water clock to track hours regardless of weather. None of these devices were personal, portable, or cheap. They belonged to philosophers, engineers, and institutions, not to ordinary people trying to get up for work. Move forward to the Islamic Golden Age, specifically to the city of Diyarbakir in what is now southeastern Turkey, in the year 1206. Here, the engineer and inventor Al-Jazari, writing in his extraordinary technical manuscript, the Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, designed a water-powered castle clock that did something no prior machine had attempted. It could be set to trigger mechanical figures, doors, and sound at specific programmable intervals, essentially the ancestor of the adjustable alarm. Al-Jazari's machines were commissioned for royalty, not for peasants. But the underlying principle he perfected, that time could be automated to produce an action, not just a measurement, quietly laid engineering groundwork that would echo through European clockmaking centuries later. Meanwhile, in medieval Europe, an entirely different institution solved the wake-up problem for millions of ordinary people who would never own a clock in their lives: the Christian monastery. Monastic life was built around canonical hours, the first of which, matins, required monks to be awake and praying around 2 in the morning. Someone had to make sure that happened every single night for centuries without fail. That person was often called the sacristan or the vigilator, and his job was to stay awake, sometimes using a graduated candle marked with lines to track burn time, sometimes a small water clock kept in the sacristy, and then physically walk the dormitory, ringing a handbell or shaking monks awake one by one. By the 9th century, larger monasteries had begun installing mechanical bell-striking systems in their towers specifically to handle this task automatically, freeing the sacristan from exhausting nightly vigil. This is worth sitting with for a second. The tower bell, one of the most recognizable sounds in European history, exists in no small part because monks needed a reliable alarm clock for an entire building at once. The bell did not start as civic infrastructure. It started as an institutional solution to human beings being bad at waking themselves up on schedule. This decision to centralize waking through a single loud, public sound seemed small at the time. It was not. Once medieval towns realized that a bell could organize the sleep and wake cycle of an entire monastery, they adapted the same logic to organize entire cities. By the 11th and 12th centuries, church bells and civic bells across Europe were ringing not just for prayer, but for curfew. The word itself comes from the French couvre-feu, meaning cover the fire, a nightly bell that told households to extinguish flames and go to bed, precisely because uncontrolled fire in wooden medieval cities was a catastrophic risk. The same bell towers that told people when to sleep would, centuries later, evolve into the factory whistle that told people when to wake. And the through line between a monk's bell and an industrial siren is a lot straighter than it looks. Halfway around the world, in Song Dynasty China around the 11th century, a completely independent solution emerged: the incense clock. Craftsmen created spiral or straight trails of compressed incense that burned at a known, steady rate, sometimes for 12 hours at a stretch. Along the trail, they tied small metal balls or weights at specific points using thread. As the incense burned down and reached a thread, the fire severed it, and the weight dropped, often onto a metal plate below, producing a sharp clang at a precisely predetermined hour. It is functionally a fire-powered alarm clock, and it required no water, no gears, and no institution, just fire, string, and careful measurement. Some versions were used in households. Others timed everything from court rituals to sea voyages, since a burning incense clock worked even aboard a rocking ship where a water clock would have sloshed uselessly. Now here is the second turning point, and it happened almost by accident. In 1787, a clockmaker in Concord, New Hampshire, named Levi Hutchins built what is widely credited as the first mechanical alarm clock made in America. It was a large wooden case clock rigged with a bell mechanism, and it could ring at exactly one time. 4 o'clock in the morning. That was it. Hutchins built it purely for his own use, because he personally wanted to wake before sunrise, and he never bothered to make it adjustable, because he never intended to sell it. It is a strange, almost funny historical footnote. The first American alarm clock was engineered around one man's personal insomnia, incapable of helping literally anyone else on Earth who woke up at a different hour. That was 1787. It would take another 60 years for someone to fix the obvious flaw. In 1847, French inventor Antoine Redier patented the first adjustable mechanical alarm clock, and in 1876 the American Seth E. Thomas Clock Company began mass-producing wind-up alarm clocks that ordinary households could actually afford and actually set to their own schedule. This decision, making the alarm adjustable and cheap, seemed small at the time. It was not. It is the exact moment the alarm clock stopped being a philosopher's toy or a monk's bell tower and became a consumer product, sitting on millions of nightstands, demanding to be obeyed by name. Which brings the story back to Mary Smith and to the knocker-uppers and to the darker, more exploitative side of waking up on time. The trade of knocking up exploded specifically because of the Industrial Revolution, because factories in cities like Manchester, Birmingham, and London ran on strict shift bells and steam whistles, and because affordable mechanical alarm clocks, even after Seth Thomas started mass-producing them, were still, for decades, out of reach for many working-class families. And even those who own one did not always trust a cheap clock not to fail. So human beings filled the gap, for pennies a week, walking the same freezing routes at 4 and 5 in the morning, decade after decade, well into the 1920s. It was overwhelmingly a job held by the elderly, the disabled, and women, people otherwise shut out of factory work, doing one of the most punishing, thankless jobs imaginable. A job where success was invisible and failure got someone else fired. And workers had no recourse. If a knocker-upper's route ran late because of fog, or illness, or a broken pole, dock and mill workers could lose an entire day's pay, or worse, lose the job entirely for a lateness that was never their fault. Sleep itself, in this period, was also quietly being re-engineered against people's will. The historian A. Roger Kirch has documented that before artificial gaslighting spread through cities in the 19th century, most pre-industrial Europeans slept in two distinct segmented bouts, what he calls first sleep and second sleep, with an hour or two of quiet wakefulness in between. Gas lighting, then electric lighting, then factory shift schedules systematically erased that pattern within about 2 generations, compressing human sleep into a single unbroken block dictated not by the body, but by the whistle. Waking up, in other words, stopped being personal. It became industrial. And no, that is not something anyone made up. It is documented in wage ledgers, factory disciplinary records, and coroner's inquests from the period where overslept, missed shift, dismissed appears again and again and again. Fast forward to today, and the scale is almost impossible to picture next to a woman with a pea shooter. Surveys suggest that well over 80% of people worldwide now use a smartphone, not a standalone clock, as their primary alarm. The global market for alarm clocks and sleep tech devices, smart alarms, wearables, sunrise simulation lamps, is estimated to be worth several $1 billion annually and growing. Snooze buttons, one small mechanical afterthought added to alarm clocks starting the 1950s, are now pressed, by some industry estimates, hundreds of millions of times every single morning across the globe, an entire species collectively negotiating with its own machines for 9 more minutes. And here is the part almost nobody expects. The alarm clock's next chapter is happening in space. NASA has maintained a tradition, dating back to the Gemini missions of the 1960s and formalized through Apollo, Skylab, and the Space Shuttle era, of playing a specially chosen wake-up call song to astronauts each morning in orbit. A human voice and a piece of music standing in for the sunrise their bodies can no longer see, since the International Space Station experiences a sunrise roughly every 90 minutes. Future Mars missions face an even stranger problem. A Martian day, called a sol, runs about 39 minutes longer than an Earth day, meaning mission planners are already engineering specialized Mars clocks and adaptive lighting schedules to keep human circadian rhythms from drifting into chaos on a planet whose sun simply does not keep our time. Ctesibius built a gonged water clock for Alexandria. Somewhere down the line, a very similar problem on a very different planet is going to need solving all over again. So think about that for a second. The same basic problem. How does a sleeping body know when to become an awake body? Took humanity from a Greek philosopher's whistling jar, to a monk's midnight bell, to a burning stick of incense in Song Dynasty China, to a New Hampshire clockmaker who only cared about himself, to a woman with a pea shooter under a London window, to a phone that vibrates on a nightstand, to a song beamed up to astronauts circling the Earth 16 times a day. It became a philosopher's parlor trick. It became a monastery's survival tool. It became a city's curfew bell. It became a factory's whip. It became a smartphone notification nobody can turn off. And in the end, the alarm clock, The machine, now responsible for launching a significant fraction of the human race out of bed every single morning of every single day, began its life as one Greek man's slightly over-engineered solution to not wanting to miss his own lecture. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us which part of the alarm clock's history surprised you the most. And make sure to like this video so more people can find it.